Thank you so much for accepting this talk.
Perfect. Good. How are you?
Good, good. Well, also in the middle of this contingency, so we are also in Mexico suspending many activities. So we're mostly at home now.
Us too here in Canada. Yeah, I am working when I'm not doing filmmaking. I'm working with a lot of businesses to help them, grow their business. So right now, I'm just trying to keep all of these businesses alive. So it's been a little bit crazy.
I would like for the students that didn't choose this activity, but that will also see this video, because I want to show this video with the questions to the rest of the students. Can we get a bit of background? And let me ask a question that, I don't know, can be hopefully a good starting point. Why running a marathon in Afghanistan?
It's a good question. I never thought that my journey would take me to Afghanistan. I certainly never thought I would ever be running a marathon in Afghanistan. And really, for me, I first heard about this story because I read an article online in the Guardian newspaper, and I heard about this woman named Zainab. And Zainab was the first woman to run a marathon in Afghanistan. And she talked about how she had to train for that marathon. And she said that first of all, she tried to go outside and she was dressed really modestly and everything, but people were throwing rocks at her. They were insulting her. She, even had people texting her on her phone, and she was receiving threats from terrorist organizations just because she was going for a run, just because she was a woman. And that blew my mind. And I thought, if someone was throwing rocks at me when I was running, I'd probably stop running.
Yes, yes.
She didn't stop. That didn't stop her. She kept going, and she trained for the marathon in like a small enclosed garden that had walls around it so no one could see her running. And she trained there. And that space of the garden was small, like wasn't a huge area, like it's the size of most of our bedrooms, right? And she just ran loops. If you can imagine, 42.2 kilometers of loops. And I couldn't get that idea out of my head. And I thought, how can I support her? How can I let her know she's not alone, that there's other people, even, half a world away, that believe in her and believe in what she's doing to take a stand for women, and to say that everyone should be able to feel safe to go for a run.
And look, I don't want to be the one asking the following questions, so let me play the first question.
All right.
Hi, my name is Daniela, and my question is, what did you have to do in order to make this marathon an international movement, and was it difficult?
Great question. So, the first year that the marathon happened, there was only one female Afghan runner. And each year, she has inspired more and more women to participate. So the year that I went over, there were actually 6 Afghan women. And then the following year, there were 12, then 22. Then this past year, there were 40. And so every year, it's pretty much doubled. And I think that, to me, is how this has become, a global movement, is that, one person inspires another person and they bring it back, right? And so I think, it's amazing to see what happens when you just take a courageous step forward and try to do something positive in your community. That's what Zainab did, right? And then she inspired me. And so we brought that idea over to Canada, and we said, even in Canada, that's a relatively safe country, right? There's still people that don't feel safe to go for a run or a walk. Maybe because there's been violence in their community, maybe because, they just don't feel safe to go out at night alone as a woman, right? And so we thought, that shouldn't be happening, right? Like, Zainab has the right idea. Everyone should be safe and free to go for a run. So she really inspired me. So we started something called the Secret 3K, where we invited people to join us for a 3-kilometer run or walk. And they could just come out on the week of International Women's Day and join us to go for a run, to show that we could celebrate our freedom to go for a run. And, the first year we had about 1,000 participants that came out and joined us. And each year it's growing. So year we had almost 2,000. This year we had over 3,000 people all around the world that joined the Secret 3K. So to me, it's a story of like one person takes a courageous step, responsibility of each of us to support that courage. So when we see someone being courageous, to get behind them and say, like, you're doing something amazing and I'm going to support you.
Sometimes people need that courageous but meaningful activity to feel connected. And then I want to be part of that. Sometimes we're looking for things that are meaningful and we don't know where to start. We don't know what to do. But when we see something like that, we go like, that's the chance I was looking for. I want to join that.
It's so true, right? Like I think all of us want to make a difference. And I think it's just finding the thing that we're passionate about, right? I mean, I didn't think that I could make a huge difference just by running, right? You can use the skills and the talents that you have can absolutely be put to good use. For me, it's been about running. It's been about creating films, right? Helping people share their story, right? And I think that's been a big part of this too, is that by sharing the story of Zanab, it's inspired more and more people. So to me, as a filmmaker, as a storyteller, that's part of what I can do to make a difference as well.
Correct. Let me play the second question.
Hello, my name is Gina, and my question is, what have been your biggest obstacles for developing this project?
It's a great question from Gina, because there's always obstacles in these kinds of challenging projects. And so we had a lot of obstacles just even to go over and make the film in Afghanistan, because Afghanistan is still an active war zone, right? So, you know, when we wanted to go over there were, you know, restrictions in terms of travel, right? So actually our own government of Canada said, do not travel to Afghanistan. It's not a safe place to go. So we had to get special permissions to go. We had to get special visas. We didn't even know if it was all going to come together, because you're waiting on all of these documents to get approved, right? And so we finally got our visas in the mail, and it was only 2 weeks before we were supposed to go. So feeling very nervous about that. But then also there's just the challenges when we got over there of safety, right? For me, it was making sure that my crew, my team that was going to be filming, that they would stay safe and that they would, you know, not, you know, have to deal with some of the security issues that are in Afghanistan. So, you know, I think, to be really honest, like there was times we did feel scared, right? Because, you know, you get stopped at checkpoints, you know, all the time, especially in Kabul. You know, you're reminded that you are in a place where there is a lot of violence. And so, you know, that was a challenge for sure. And then there was just the challenges of trying to get any project done, right? I mean, I'm sure that you can relate. If you have a school project, sometimes it's crazy just trying to get that deadline, trying to get it accomplished, right? And for us, it was working with so many different people to pull this project together. And so I think there's always that kind of challenge of just how do you get a whole team of people together? But what I've been amazed by is that every single person that's been part of this project has brought so much love, so much generosity. They've donated a lot of their time and a lot of their talent. And, you know, it wouldn't have been possible without everybody just being so generous in their spirit.
I have to ask about that and about the cooperation and the obstacles. Was there like some government support, either the Canadian government or the Afghan government, for this project to happen?
No, that was another challenge for sure, was even just getting the money together to be able to go over. So one of our big challenges was that we couldn't tell anybody that we were making this film before we went over. And that's because the race organizers didn't want to put the event itself in danger, right? Because you can imagine that, unfortunately, there's still terrorist organizations in Afghanistan that if they found out this was happening, it a target, right? And finding out that there's people filming it makes it an increased target, right? So they asked us to keep it a secret. So we started calling it the Secret Marathon, which is why we titled it the Secret Marathon. We said, well, it's a secret. We can't tell anybody, really. So we couldn't make a website. We couldn't do like a Kickstarter campaign or like crowdfunding campaign like people would normally do when they make a film. We couldn't even really apply for the normal like grants that a filmmaker might apply for through the government or things like that. So what we ended up doing was turning to businesses and to individuals, asking if they would support us. So we'd go from one person to the next, kind of going door to door so that we wouldn't have anything that was publicly facing. And we were really lucky because there was a business in my hometown of Calgary, Viz Communications, actually gave us the money that we needed. They said, we believe in you. We believe in what you're doing, and they said, we have daughters. We want a better world for them. And so they actually gave us the money that we needed to go over to Afghanistan in the first place to film. So that was an incredible way that we got some help to be able to meet a major obstacle.
Of course. Let me play the next question.
Hello, my name is Brenda and I have a question. Are you proud of the huge impact of this movement?
So thank you, Brenda, for your question. I am really proud of what we've been able to do. And I'm proud of my team that has put this all together. This has been a group effort. Absolutely. Everyone that was involved in making the film, but also all the people that gave us donations to help make the film possible. Some people gave us like $5, $10, some even way more, to make this film happen. And without them, it just wouldn't have happened, right? But I also think of all of the runners. We have had so much support from the running community, and we've had organizations that have come along to support us. So, groups like the Running Room here in Canada, where it was just running clubs all across the country that said, we support you, we want to help you. Recently, we've had a ton of support from Girl Guides of Canada. And so, younger people, a lot of people the same age as you, Brenda, that have come out and volunteered and helped us to be able to share this story. And so that's been incredible. And, I'm proud of that, because one of the things we hoped would happen when we shared this story is that it would make a difference for the next generation, right? So that we can change the way the world is that I really want to make sure that the world that young girls today grow up in is different than the world I grew up in, is different than the world that Zainab grew up in, that we have a world where every single person feels like they can go for a run or a walk and do that in a safe way.
Let me play the next one.
Hello, my name is Leslie, and my question is, how do you feel about yourself making a change in society?
So thank you, Leslie, for your question about how I feel. Sometimes I'm just actually really surprised this has all happened. When I first started it, I hoped we'd make some sort of small difference, but you don't know. You don't know how any of these things are going to turn out, right? And so, at every single stage, I've just been like, wow, it's still happening. It's getting bigger, and I've actually been like really surprised about that. But also feel so blessed that there's been so many people that have supported us in what we're doing. And I think for me, I've learned so much through this process. I think what I've really learned is that sometimes you feel like you're all alone, right? Sometimes you feel like you're the only person that is trying to make a change, right? Or the only person that cares about something. And that can feel really lonely. But what I've seen working on this project is that if you're like willing to just go like a couple steps further, and just be brave enough to be like, feel alone for a little bit longer than you really want to, that people come alongside you, right? And that's been so inspiring for me, is just the number of people that just when I thought we can't go any further, this is too hard, I can't do it, that someone's come alongside me and helped me out. And that was both while I was training for the marathon, because I never thought I would run 42 kilometers. That seems so long to me. And the number of people that helped just by running alongside me, right? But also the people that ran alongside us for the film, right? And helped us get this done, right? So that's been a big learning for me.
The running a marathon, talking about personal achievements, that's a big one. Amazing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Hi there, my name is Martha Nays Vega Gonzalez. Do you think there's been a significant change since you first ran the marathon in Afghanistan?
Yeah. So Martha, I am so excited to share with you that there has been a change in Afghanistan. And, we've seen that, the first year there was one Afghan woman participating in the marathon. This past year, there were 40 Afghan women participating. And in fact, now the marathon has expanded. So it's not just a marathon. They have a 10-kilometer run. They also have even a children's 1-kilometer run, right? And every year they're actually selling out. So they don't have any more room, and it keeps growing and growing and growing. And this past year, 40% of the participants were women. So that's huge, right? That's a huge difference that's happening to have 40% of the participants be women. But I think what's also really important is the attitudes among men as well. So to be able to, that men have come and they're participating in the marathon too, because this is Afghanistan's first co-gender athletic activity. So it's a big deal, right? Men and women participating in sport together. And so every man that chooses to participate is making a big difference as well, because they're saying, I believe that society should be equal. I believe women should have the same opportunity as I have.
That's powerful, super powerful. Let me play the next question.
Hi, my name is Alejandra, and this is my question. Have you ever thought about implementing the program in other countries?
Absolutely. Alejandra, I love how you think. This is exactly how I think. How do we make this go bigger? So you and I were on the same page. And absolutely, we are thinking about how do we bring this to other countries. So there's a couple of really cool things that are happening. One is that we're doing film screenings around the world. It's been a little bit more challenging during this time with COVID-19 and the coronavirus, right? But we're still trying to get the film out there and working towards allowing more and more people to see it. And it's part of my dream that it would make it to Mexico. One of my dearest friends is Mexican, and he has been a huge supporter of this film. So I want it to be in his home country, because that would be amazing. And I'd love for all of you to see it, because that would be so cool. So definitely we're doing that. And then every year we host something called the Secret 3K, which is a run and walk. It's held on International Women's Day. People come together and they support. And so I would invite you and all of your friends, come out and join us next year. We're going to be doing it the first week of March. I'll make sure that your teacher knows about it. He's actually participated before, so you can ask him how it was, because he did an amazing job participating with us. But it's been so cool that we've had people participate in Mexico, in Brazil, in China, in India, Pakistan, in Afghanistan, in Europe, as well as in North America. We've just had people all across the world that say, I believe in this. I believe in everyone's right to be free to run. And they join us. And it's so cool. So I want to keep doing more of that. And I want to keep spreading the word. But I think more than anything, I think the thing that each of us can do is to encourage the women and girls in our life to say, hey, if you want to go for a run and you don't feel safe, I'll go with you, right? I think that's something every single one of us can do to make a difference.
Hi, my name is Majo, and my first question is, what do you think are the biggest impediments for inclusion and equality?
I think there's quite a few, but I think some of these pieces are that sometimes as women, we forget that we need the support of men as well. So sometimes when we're trying to talk about gender equality, we say, this should be all about women and rah, 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 right? Which is good, but we also have to work together. So we have to find ways, if we really want gender equality, if we really want inclusiveness, we have to remember that we need both sides of the population to work together. And if we make men feel like they're not part of the solution, then we're actually distancing the very people we need to help us. So I think that's a big part of it, is that we have to look for ways to include men to help them feel like they're part of it. I think the other piece that's really important is that I think we need to keep looking for how we can make it a little bit better. So I think, when we look at what's happening in Afghanistan, it's very obvious for us to say, of course, that's not okay. Of course, that's crazy that a woman would have rocks thrown at her, or have people yelling out that she's a prostitute, or terrible things like that, just because she's running. But I think we also have to look at what's happening in our own countries, and what can we do to remove some of the barriers for equality and for inclusion. And so I look at that in terms of, I think in some of our countries, more here in the Americas, it's about looking at how do we have make sure that women and men are earning the same pay when they're at work, right? How do we make sure that more women are in positions of leadership? How do we encourage that, right? How do we make sure that in these big businesses that we have women sitting on some of the boards of these businesses? So what we need to do maybe is a little bit different than what we see in Afghanistan, but we still need to make a change here in our own places. And so I think one of the biggest barriers can be that a lot of women, they don't feel like they could make a change. So maybe they have all of the capabilities, all of the skills and talents to be a leader. Maybe even if you think about it in your school, maybe you know someone that could be a leader and they could be, they could help represent your school, but maybe they don't feel like they could do it, right? And so I think one of the biggest things that we can do to remove that barrier is let them know, hey, I think you'd be great at this. I think you'd be an amazing leader. You should consider leading, or you should consider being in this role. And so I think if we can encourage each other, I think that's a huge part of it as well.
Thank you. That was a very interesting question and great. Thank you so much for your answer. Let me play the next question.
Oh, hi Kate. My name is Luis Alberto Miranda. You explained in your video Highway to Health your perspective about women's rights in sports. And I know all your solutions could be applied in any other field of our society. However, do you think all countries are brave enough to get together and face the gender issues of this society?
Yeah, so thank you for your question about thinking about how brave are other countries in terms of addressing gender issues. I think what I've seen is that some countries are taking huge steps forward, right? And some countries are still very far behind, right? And so I think what we need to do, and what I found works well, is that rather than saying to somebody, I don't think change happens when we make people feel really bad, right? If I say to you, like, you're doing a terrible job, everything you're doing is awful, right? I don't think that makes anyone say, oh, great, I'm really motivated, I want to change, right? We just feel bad about ourselves. We feel ashamed about ourselves, right? But if you say to someone, I see you're making a small change here, well done, keep going. I'd like to see you take another small change, right? I think that actually makes a much bigger difference. And so I think we need to take that same approach with countries. We need to say that when we see a country doing something that is a positive step towards gender equality, we need to praise them, we need to recognize it, and we need to support it. And sometimes that looks very different from country to country. So for example, in some time I spent in Uganda, I talked with women there, and they said one of the biggest obstacles for them was that there wasn't access to feminine hygiene products for women. And so that meant that a lot of women and girls weren't going to school, they weren't going to work, because they didn't have the sanitation items they needed to do that, right? And so I think sometimes that means saying, okay, when a government makes a change to help provide more sanitary items to women, to say, well done, that's a huge difference, right? For others, where we see there being change, where they're encouraging more women to run for politics, that's great. We want to encourage that, right? I think it's actually fascinating and also terrible at the same time that Afghanistan actually has more women in their government than we do here in Canada. And so for me, that's something I want to try to encourage, is that when I see women running for politics in my country, just to even send them a little note and say, thank you for running. Even if I don't agree with their political background, I'm appreciative that they're taking a stand to be a leader in our country.
There is one more question from the last question from students, and then a final question, which is mine.
Great.
My name is Sarai Moreno, and I recently saw one of your videos about the secret marathon, and I found it quite interesting. What advice would you tell young girls around the world about this issue?
My advice for young girls is just go out there and chase your dreams down. If you want to do something, make it happen. I mean, for me, my dream was about sharing this story in Afghanistan. And there was a lot of people who I'm sure thought, oh my gosh, what is this woman doing going over to Afghanistan by herself, And I could have let all of those fears that other people had, or all of those challenges stop me, right? But instead, looking at it and going, yeah, this is a challenge, but how can I bring a community of people around me to support me so I can make it happen, right? And I think each of us can do that. So my advice is, you want to do something, go for it. Absolutely try it out. I also would really say that, what we do in our day-to-day lives makes a difference, right? So if you want to do something big, if you want to make a big change in the world, then it starts with what you do first thing in the morning, right? So what kind of person are you when you first wake up? And for me, running has become something that's been really helpful with that, because it's a little challenge I give to myself. And that, doing my workout every day is a way that I stay strong and stay resilient for myself, right? So I think if you're not running, that's okay, but find some sort of physical activity so that you can challenge yourself to be more resilient and to be stronger, because each of us is going to have challenges. Absolutely. The world is full of them. But if we can help prepare ourselves and grow the mental strength, right? The mental strength and the heart strength to be able to face those challenges, then I think we'll be ready to actually make a difference in the world.
All right. Now, as a big movie buff, I don't know if Gerardo told you that I'm a big movie buff. It's like, oh my God, my number one passion. My question is about the documentary. I remember you recently told me in an email that it will likely be released 2021, like widespread release. But I don't know if that has changed, or what's the plan right now. Where can we see this movie?
I'm excited for this movie to be shared more widely, but right now it's a little bit of a moving target with everything that's happening with the coronavirus. Some of our plans have changed. That said, we just signed a deal with a distributor so that we could get it into 5 different countries. So our plan is that it would go on June 10th to Australia, New Zealand, United Kingdom, USA, and Canada. And so that we would have it in theaters. Now, we'll see what happens, because that date may need to be pushed back.
Of course.
So it may not be until November, depending on what happens with everything with the coronavirus. But that's one of our big plans. And then longer term, our goal is that we want to be able to have it distributed digitally. So we are working towards finding ways that we can get this thing online. I mean, my dream has always been, how cool would it be if we could be on, Netflix or Amazon Prime or something like that? That'd be incredible, so that people all around the world could see it. And so that's kind of what we're working towards, as a longer term goal. And at each stage, we don't know. We don't know if we'll be successful or not, but we're trying to get it out there further and further. And eventually, after we kind of go through some of those pieces, then we're hopeful that we would be able to, if there's anyone that still hasn't seen it, then we'll, be able to have digital downloads or things like that people can get, so that they'll be able to see it and experience the story themselves.
I'm really happy to hear you got a distributor, because those 5 countries you mentioned, I mean, they are important countries. So I'm really happy to hear that, because it's difficult sometimes to get one. So that's a great major step. Congratulations on that. I'm happy to hear that it was gonna be released in June. I mean, unfortunately, it's been delayed, but that's this year. So this is a major step. I don't know if after it is released in these countries, it will get an extended release to more countries, and maybe we will be able to see it in Mexico in the theaters. But in case that doesn't happen because of logistics or whatever, Netflix or Amazon would be amazing, would be awesome. I hope it gets there.
Absolutely. Well, and once we do that June 10th screening or the November screening, whichever one happens, we'll see. But there will be an opportunity for communities to actually request the film to come to a theater near them.
Okay.
If there's communities where they can get 50 people out, then we can do a screening in that community. And so that's an exciting opportunity that we're looking forward to in the future, as well as that once the theaters reopen, then, for example, if all of the students want to come together and do a screening, then we can, find find a theater that is nearby that we can make that happen. So we're excited that our new distributor partner, that they have that as an option, because it's going to be amazing to be able to bring it into theaters in so many different communities.
Kate, I appreciate you. You have no idea how much I thank you for this time you made for this interview, I want to call it. It's been one of the most fun talks, interviews I've ever had in my life. And I'm sure my students are going to enjoy listening to your answers and to your reflections, because they are compelling, they are thorough, they are really, really sensitive. You're like a great person. We can feel that vibe from you, and I'm sure they're gonna love to see their questions, and they're gonna love to see they're gonna love to hear your answers, and really appreciate it so much.
So I just want to thank all of you students for your amazing questions. Those were really fantastic. I mean, I've been asked a lot of questions about the film over the last couple of years, and your questions were so insightful and so thoughtful. So great work. I'm really impressed by how much you're thinking about this topic, and thank you for your interest in this film and for your interest in this project. Like, it inspires me to know that you're interested in it and that you want to get involved and make a difference. And so thank you to all of you. You are all amazing, and I hope one day we'll get to meet.